Okay, so the parsha this week by Yetzer. It opens with Jacob's famous dream about the ladder which is rooted in the earth and reaching up to heavens, with the angels ascending and descending. It goes on to describe the 20 years that he spent with his father-in-law in Lavan in his home, during which time he marries Leah and Rachel, works for Lavan, and becomes very wealthy. The relationship with his father-in-law, Lavan, is very fraught because Lavan is a trickster deluxe, a trickster of the first, a schwitzer of the first order, I think they would say in common parlance, cheating his son-in-law time and time again, working him to the bone, making his life an absolute misery. And when Joseph, the 11th of Jacob's children from his two wives, is born, Jacob has had enough, it's time to leave. He flees together with his wives, his children, his households, and his possessions. And then, at the very end of the parsha, we read of a very strange episode. The Torah reads as follows: "And it was reported to Lavan on the third day that Jacob had fled. And he took his sons with him, and he chased after him a 7 days' journey, and he overtook him at Mount Gilad. And then they had a big ding-dong. And Jacob was angry, and he argued with Lavan, and he said, 'What is my crime? What is my sin that you've so hotly pursued me? 20 years I've been in your employ, and the day drought consumed me, and the frost at night, the sleep departed from my eyes. You've made my life a complete and total misery. What are you chasing me for goodness sake?' And they have words backwards and forwards, and each of them accuses the others. It's a terrible, terrible scene. A real family breakers, big time. And then Lavan says, 'Come, let us make a covenant, I and you.' And they took stones and they made a heap, and they ate there upon the heap. And Lavan said to Jacob, 'This heap shall be a witness, and this monument shall be a witness, that I will not cross this heap to you, and you will not cross this heap and monument to me for harm.' And the two of them spent the night on the hill. And Lavan rose in the morning, and he returned to his place, and Jacob went on his way." So it seems that after 20 years of this difficult relationship between Jacob and Lavan, in which they would have said everything they had to say to each other, there's still some unfinished business and some more nastiness still to come. Yaakov had left, as I mentioned, in very bad terms with his father. There was no love lost between them. Each one of them was absolutely convinced, as often happens in a really good argument, that the other had cheated on him. And in this final meeting, there are even further angry accusations. That's the tone on which we would expect this story to logically end. But instead, the unexpected and unintended outcome of this unplanned encounter is that Jacob and Lavan reconcile their differences and they make peace. So what is it that we can learn from this finale scene that seems to have been bolted on to the main storyline? Here's a suggestion. There are actually two kinds of events in all of our lives. The first are the ones that we consciously pursue and of which we exercise control. We plan our education, we decide who we're going to marry, we choose a community, we chart a career, we plan and we save for retirement. We're constantly manipulating our environment, cultivating opportunities and taking advantage of them when they present themselves to us. These are the planned events in our lives. But every so often, we're confronted with a negative event that is neither of our making nor of our control, and it just happens out of the blue. A situation arises that we never desired. It pursues us even as we flee from it. And when this occurs, our instinct is to feel exasperated, aggravated, to rail against this unwelcome intrusion into our lives for the unfairness of what has happened. And this must surely have been what Jacob felt like when he saw this hated man that he could not wait to get away from, suddenly appearing with his posse on the horizon. And hence his outcry, "What more do you want of me? Are my decades of scorching days and freezing nights not enough?" And so too we call out when we're confronted by the unexpected events in our lives. Why did it happen? Why me? Why now? But the great turnaround lesson contained in this Jacob Lavan episode is to never dismiss these encounters or fail to extract the kernel of good that always lies buried in them, despite the upset that they cause. Sometimes, in retrospect, these unexpected events may contain the most elusive and rewarding achievements of our lives. Or sometimes the outcome is a new insight that changes and enriches our lives. So let me say that the pandemic is one of those unexpected events in our lifetimes. Everyone recognizes that some good things have come out of it, despite the death and the havoc that it's wreaked. But there is one great life-changing insight that we have learned during this time that I fervently hope that we'll not lose when the world returns to some form of normality. And we have seen this expressed at a national level in many forms, and we've seen it in our community in acts of kindness and caring and beautiful togetherness, just like the togetherness of this Kabbalat Shabbat. It is beautifully summed up in a photograph I saw of a shop window bearing the following message in great big large print: "You can't lock down love." Shabbat Shalom.